Yeah, absolutely. Especially if you're a new entrepreneur, handling ads is a whole nother obstacle, a whole nother monster that you need to understand. But it's a lot easier to understand direct outbound or warm outreach if you have previous relationships, or asking for referrals and affiliates, understanding how to run a sales cycle, understanding how to create an offer, set the meeting, talk to people, and close them, as opposed to trying to go the other way where you're starting to learn how to do ads and then kind of go back to this. I think this would be a more advantageous way to go about things.
Welcome to another episode of From Startup to Wunderbrand with Nicholas Kuhne. Welcome back, everyone. Today we have a very cool individual. We've got Jared Jennings. Now, Jared is an entrepreneur, online coach, and founder of Phantom Brands, where he's built brands for high-profile athletes, artists, and entrepreneurs. Names like NBA stars Marvin, Bagley III, and Jalen Armour-Davis of the Baltimore Ravens. Jared's passion for mindset transformation and manifestation has helped a whole bunch of entrepreneurs achieve life-changing breakthroughs in business and beyond. He's here to share how aligning your mindset with action can unlock extraordinary success. And obviously, because this is a digital marketing and branding podcast, we're going to talk about that as well. So, Jared, welcome.
Thank you, Nicholas. Thank you. I'm very excited to be here.
Now, I love talking to entrepreneurs because you own the story. So you're not working for a company where you've got to be a bit shy in terms of the ins and outs of the working of the business. So let's maybe talk a little bit about Phantom Brands and jaredjennings.com and the difference between the two of them, perhaps.
Yeah, so Phantom is a company that I own that creates done-for-you brands for public figures, like you mentioned, athletes, people in that realm that have an audience that they can already market to. And that's the whole value play, is that everybody wears clothes. They won't have to market. They have that baked-in audience that we can release a brand through, and they can leverage that. So we do done-for-you brands for people of that nature. We also work with a lot of eComm brands as well that are direct-to-consumer and helping them grow, whether that's paid media, whether that's content, or changing the website. We take a very holistic approach with DTC eComm brands. Now, jaredjennings.com is all coaching, so a little bit different. But I've done eComm and I've done a service-based business, so I coach entrepreneurs on business and mindset. So it's like half business strategies, half, how is your mindset? How are your limiting beliefs? How can we cause a massive breakthrough in your life? So that's the coaching side, as well as Phantom, which is more on the eComm side.
So we'll go into the manifestation side a little bit later. I now understand a little bit more about Phantom Brands, and also the name is great then as well for what you're doing. So basically this means that celebs who have got a brand to sell and want to merchandise and want to create material and merch basically for their audience can come to you. You do all the legwork. They work on some of the creative aspects, but you make sure there's a site, it gets sold, the manufacturing is done, it's not done in sweatshops, etc. And they have less risk because there's somebody managing this process for them.
Yeah, someone that's done it before. And a big distinction, because fan merch has always been out there, I'm sure you've seen a lot of athletes or whoever with fan merch, is we do a little bit of that, but what we really, really are good at is creating a legitimate brand. Because what we notice as well is, for a lot of athletes in particular, their fans aren't really going to wear fan merch if the athlete isn't wearing it themselves, which they never are, right? It's always like a picture of their face, and people fall asleep in that stuff, but they don't really wear it out. And what our job is, and what our mission is to create a brand that the athlete or whoever is creating the brand would organically wear. That is when you can actually create genuine influence, because then the audience can say, oh, they actually are wearing the product out and about all the time. And that's where we come into play to create that brand for them.
So this is really in the realm of influencer marketing as well. These guys have got a brand that is going to be relevant for a short period of time. Their career probably has only got a couple of years, and it might be cut short by a devastating injury or something like that. So this gives them an additional sort of life after sport and an additional revenue stream. So you mentioned Marvin, Bagley, and Jalen. Maybe talk through the process of how you got them on board, because Phantom Brands had to start from somewhere. Did you have tons of bucks from your parents to start this up, or was this a ground up kind of approach?
No, I didn't have any capital starting Phantom, because it's all service based. So what ended up happening is I had a lot of relationships for my first brand in the public world. A lot of, Marvin was somebody that wore my brand prior. So when I created this special offer, I reached out to everybody that had worn my brand that was in this, that fit the criteria. So there was already a lot of built-in trust in terms of the quality that we could provide, the brands that we can create, what the end product is. And then we went from there. And then as soon after we got, a couple of our first clients, then it was all outbound sales, showing proof, just a typical sales cycle. Very outbound though, because it's too niche to run ads through. So we are very specific in who we reach out to. We'll then go through a series of meetings with them and their team, their legal, etc., and then we bring them on board.
I think that's an important point to make to entrepreneurs as well, is about focus. You had a very, very targeted audience, which was similar to what our friends in the insurance industry do. Friends, family, and then you spread out from there, versus trying to do a Google campaign and you get 1 million clicks, but none of them are actually very relevant to you. So would you suggest that to folks starting out as well, not to go the Google ads route and really, know your customer, your first sort of 10 customers really well first?
Yeah, absolutely. Especially if you're a new entrepreneur. I mean, handling ads is a whole nother obstacle, a whole nother monster that you need to understand. But it's a lot easier to understand direct outbound, right? Or outreach or warm outreach if you have previous relationships, or asking for referrals and affiliates. And I think that's more of a fundamental skill as well, understanding how to run a sales cycle, understanding how to, create an offer, set the meeting, talk to people and close them, as opposed to trying to go the other way where you're starting to, learn how to do ads and then kind of go back to this. I think this would be a more advantageous way to go about things.
Now, do you bring in creative directors or designers to do this, or are you sort of the creative director and do you workshop this with your client? How does that process come about in terms of actually going from concept or talking to them and saying, hey, you've got great style, let's get you out there? How does that process work?
So both. We do a deep dive with them on a couple of different things. First off, we want to understand really their fashion sense, what they like to wear, what are the brands are that they like. And then we'll go into the personal side of things of what makes them unique. We really need to understand what is going to be different about their brand based on who they are. Now, once we come to a conclusion on name and overall branding, then I, spearhead the design work with the designers that we work with as well to create the artwork, to create the graphic, to create whatever's going to be, pressed or embroidered or screen printed, whatever the case is. And then we move down the line on what's next.
In terms of these celebs and their marketing efforts, once they've got a beautiful outfit from you, for example, is it now left up to them to go and promote that? Or do you also provide those services in terms of helping them with their influencer marketing, helping them with their ads? Because as you mentioned, there's ads, and they must have quite a targeted community that they're following as well. What kind of guidance do you give them to start building their own brand? Because these guys typically are sportsmen, not marketers.
Yes. So what we always do is start with our organic reach. Of course, we have build-up cycles, we have content, etc. And then what we'll want to do as well is they have fantastic networks, which is a big selling point as well, because they have a lot of people on speed dial that have a massive audience, right, on their team, in their network, etc. So then we'll go that route as well. It's also going to be very organic because they're friends of the player that owns the brand. It's not going to seem as transactional as some other influencer marketing might go. Now, that is going to cover, a lot of the first few months of building the brand, and then from that we can expand. But with their audience and with organic reach and with their team and with their fan base, that carries a lot of the weight.
This is obviously quite a low volume business because this is not going to Walmart and Target and places like that. In terms of sales cycles and figuring out sort of stock numbers, is this stuff that is made on demand and made in the US? How do you manage that side? Imagine you've got somebody who's selling 10 units a week or 20 units, and all of a sudden they just explode on TikTok or Instagram, and then they get 1,000, 2,000 orders. How do you manage to ramp up the business from low, under 100 units up to the thousands?
So in terms of production, we're very flexible in who we give our in the options we give our clients. We're the liaison. We don't do production in-house. We're the liaison. So we have international. We also have domestic manufacturers that we work with and that we partner with, that we oversee production for. Now, inventory is not really a problem. I mean, we start low, then we can kind of build up. But again, it's really engaging their community. It's them organically wearing the brand. It's getting content from them. It's leveraging their network. And with time, you can build a legitimate brand around that exposure alone, depending on their following.
So you've had quite a lot of experience in the personal branding space, because these are not guys who are going to start a Gucci overnight. These are guys who are trading on their names and their current awareness in the market. Let's talk about how you've grown your brand a little bit. And after that, we'll go into a bit of your coaching work. Well, actually, this ties into your coaching work as well, because you've named your website jaredjennings.com,
Yes.
which is your name. It's not Mindfulness Incorporated. It's not removed from your name. Maybe talk to me why you used your name and your personal branding tips for anyone listening to this who's starting out in the coaching business.
So I named it my name because I am the coach. I don't have any coaches that coach under me as a company. So I do the group coaching or the one-on-one coaching. However, whatever capacity we're going to be working in, that is me, right? I am who you get. And I am branding it in a way that it's directly correlated to my name and my personal brand, right? And when it comes to personal branding, as you asked, I believe that what's worked best for me is definitely being vulnerable and telling my story. I've gotten a lot of amazing reception when it came to revealing things that not a lot of people knew about me. I mean, maybe it's things I overcame with my health, even though I'm a business coach. I mean, that adds a level of relatability as opposed to when you're telling people what to do on every single reel, right? You can kind of talk about your personal experience, and that really does help you build a lot of trust when you're building your personal brand.
I notice you're on a couple of social media channels: Instagram, TikTok, YouTube, X. Maybe talk to me, and I'm not sure if you've got a media agency behind you or if you're the guy who's filming your clips and editing your clips and putting them out there. As a smaller business or an entrepreneur, how have you gone about managing your social media posting? Because this is a challenge a lot of entrepreneurs have. Do I choose one channel? Do I do all the channels and see which one fits? Do I post once a day? Man, this is taking me a long time. I'm not getting the traction I want. Talk to me through your experience of social media now that you're having to push your personal brand.
Yeah. So the personal brand stuff is fairly new for me, but here's what I've noticed. I've noticed that depending on your target audience, again, like what are we selling and who are we selling it to? That's going to help you determine a platform. Now, I think overall speaking, in terms of selling a service or an offer or whatever it is that you're selling, I do believe that YouTube and Instagram have the best audiences for converting to sales. I'm on TikTok, I'm on X, like you mentioned, I'm on LinkedIn. LinkedIn's fantastic for B2B, but I'm just talking personal brand, B2C consumer stuff right now. I do believe that YouTube and Instagram have fantastic conversions when it comes to followers to converting them through a sales cycle or a product or whatever it is that you're doing. Every platform is a little bit different, and it definitely can be a lot to manage. I have people that work with me that really do help me with my content. Thankfully, though, and this is something that I think would be a very high leverage activity for anybody listening to really, really practice, is the ability to speak in front of a camera. Because I have people that I'm working with that are building personal brands, and it might take them 30, 40 minutes for one reel because they have to do so many takes, right? If you're able to get really good at communicating, you can do that one reel in, say, 5 to 10 minutes. And that will help you push out a lot more volume in a lot less amount of time. So I think it's really the soft skills of like copywriting, communication that can really help you do a lot more with your content, because you're not having to consistently, rinse and repeat and do different takes for things.
Yeah. And it takes up a lot of time. I mean, we can't use AI for everything. I mean, I've tried.
Yeah.
And it lulls you into this sense that I can generate a whole bunch more content that I could, but then the output comes and it's not really usable. So you've actually got to go and redo a lot of work. So I found that it does some of the filtering for me, and then I can use it to filter out specific comments that I'm looking for. But then I've got to massage that quite a lot to get my own tone of voice and to get the real relevant nuggets of information. Now, the reason I wanted to ask about X and TikTok and Instagram is exactly to your point in terms of conversion versus awareness. Because if anyone's got their bingo cards, here we're talking about the customer journey again. You've got a website which is almost like a testimonial website, because you've got to take people through the journey of what problem do they have, how can you solve it? Other people have this problem, I've solved that, and here are the people that I've solved problems for. Don't just take my word for it. We're talking about leads. So you say Instagram and your website and YouTube. I want to talk a little bit about X. I quite like X, and you've got quite a few followers there as well, and the engagement is quite good. What do you think the future of is for X, and maybe doing live broadcasts on X or things like? I see you've probably got Facebook, but your mother will probably be looking at those at those videos. Talk to me about, have you had any experience deep diving into X and seeing how it can work for you?
I've actually gotten quite a substantial amount of coaching clients from X. So in that regard, it's actually worked quite well. Now, I've noticed in terms of growth that there's plateaus, kind of like any platform, right? But you're really determinant. Your growth is really determinant on how well your engagement is and who you're reaching. And there's a lot of posting that isn't as business centric on X, where it's kind of like a free for all. And that's what I've kind of seen, right? But at the same time, you can find clients. Are they at the pedigree of a LinkedIn or an Instagram in terms of spend, in terms of qualifications? I haven't seen that personally quite yet, especially because not a lot of e-com brands are on X. It's more agencies and coaches and info, right? So I think X is great for a lot of different things. I haven't done the live yet. I haven't done the spaces or a live yet, but I think that also could be really interesting for sure.
Mm. You mentioned you're the only coach. I've also seen on your website that you have courses for sale, because the next challenge is how do you get yourself extra hours in the day? So is that by raising the price in terms of your hours, creating more content? Which part of your business are you looking at expanding more into 2025? Is it the eComm side, or is it your coaching business?
That's a good question. I want to get more singular in both, in terms of being able to prioritize things in both that are higher leveraged. Because in terms of coaching, I have raised my prices. I have, gotten better clients, which is definitely a good thing, and definitely something that I need to do as I grow the business and as I get my time back. I also love the done for you side, but we are more selective now, where we would take meetings with maybe somebody with 250,000 followers, but now our threshold's 500K and up. Because some of it's on profit split, right? So we need to be really specific in who we work with. So when I believe that, I think, I want to do both. I want to do coaching. I want to do Phantom. We just need to be more specific on who we're doing it with and go for less volume, higher transaction price.
This helps your coaching business as well, I guess, because you're going through this process, and you've gone through the process, and you've started brands, and you've had a couple of businesses now. Let's talk a little bit about manifestation and the kind of coaching services you offer. There are tons of coaches out there. What is your differentiator, Jared?
All I can say was what I've done. I'm sure to a certain degree that on the surface level, we both, people teach business, people teach mindset. What I do is I really split it into. It's the business side of things, and it's the personal development side of things. Because something that I shot myself in the foot with is when I first started out in entrepreneurship, I failed to understand the tie to personal development. I was very ignorant and oblivious to how important my development was as a person, my beliefs, my mindset was to the growth of my business. I thought I could just learn business strategies, but it's more intertwined than people really, really think, right? So I take a very holistic and personal take approach on it because I've been through it, right? So we'll look at the personal development side. We'll go into meditations. We'll talk about limiting beliefs. We'll talk about mindset shifts, how they view themselves as their identity. But then I'll also go into, okay, what numbers are we tracking? Depending on the business model, how are we acquiring customers? What's our customer acquisition cost? And then get really into the weeds on the business because I do see them as equally important when you're trying to grow a business as an entrepreneur.
If you had to have a magic wand and get the ideal client to coach, who would that be?
That would be somebody running their own business, e-commerce or e-commerce service based, does not matter. E-commerce service based between $10,000 and $20,000 per month is somebody that I can help a lot. That can help a lot take to the next level.
Well, it seems you've got a lot on your plate, Jared, and you've got to use some of the tools that you've mentioned in terms of not having burnout, because you've got two businesses that's splitting your attention during the day. And let's maybe talk about how you manage to run two businesses, because you talk about burnout and you talk about manifestation and managing businesses. How do you manage your own life? Because I live in Norway. Life is much easier than it is in the US. It's quite a cutthroat industry that you're in as well. How do you schedule your week, your month, your year? What is your sort of process for grounding yourself and making sure that you are able to give attention to both these businesses and do them successfully and have a personal life and drive your awesome Mercedes-Benz AMG?
It's a lot you got to put in the schedule. I have a time block calendar that really helps me. Something I've noticed as well, and I think a lot of entrepreneurs can relate to this, is when you do a lot of work from home, it can be very isolating, and that can also hurt your mental health and also cause you to be demotivated with your work. So what I do is I literally have to pencil in time to see my friends. I have to pencil in time to social time at nights after 7 during the week or on the weekend, just so I can be a rounded human being. Because I don't think anybody, as much as you love to work, can close your office door and just work for 15 hours a day every single day. That's just not practical. Maybe if you're Elon Musk, but I'm definitely not. So making time for things that are holistically good for me. My health is very important. I go to the gym. It's very important. Seeing my friends and being social and seeing my family, very important. From there, the work and the meditation and making sure I take care of my body is all a part of it. And, if I'm drained, I'll take a half day, right? Like I need to listen to my mind. I need to listen to my body. Nothing is going to crash if I stop working at 3 p.m. one day. Like we're going to be fine. Nothing's going to go, not the Titanic. So listening to your mind, listening to your body, because it really is a marathon. Like we're not here to sprint. This is a long game of endurance. So I also, put a lot of trust in the people that I have on my team that I work with, my designers or my VAs or whatever. They really do help me out a lot. So delegating, making time for things outside of work that help your mental health, your physical health, I find very, very important.
So what are some of those things outside of work life that you enjoy other than driving? That gives you sort of your downtime. Do you have a mix between high energy and then low intensity activities? What is your sort of preferred downtime practice?
Probably dinners with friends I really enjoy, or outdoor workout classes I really enjoy in group settings. Dinners with family I really enjoy. I'm a pretty simple guy. I don't need much. Dinners and socializing, getting to see people I care about is checks the box for me. It checks my social box. I feel okay at that point.
I want to pick up on something you mentioned a bit earlier, which is the social isolation of working at home or at a home office. Networking is something that a lot of young entrepreneurs either get right or get really wrong. Do you have any advice for folks in terms of networking? I remember when I started out, I thought, man, I'm so smart, I can do all of this shit myself. And then I realized, actually, these older guys who are saying, hey, let's give you some guidance. We've been through this. I didn't listen to them because I thought I knew better and I was young. How have you avoided that, or how are you avoiding that?
Well, I got burned by that really badly when I started out. I was very ignorant to my own ignorance. So I learned that very early on, that there's always so much to learn. So in terms of networking with that approach, I always go about it wanting to give value, wanting to build some sort of connection. I never attempt to make it transactional. If we end up working together, that's fantastic, but I never lead with that. I genuinely always lead when I'm meeting somebody with, how can I help them? What are they interested in? And who is this person? Because when you're ignorant to your own ignorance, like you mentioned, it definitely gets you burned. It definitely gets you burned, and you also don't build connections that way. So it's a lose-lose. And two negatives don't equal a positive in this situation. So it's all bad.
Now, you're in the coaching business. Who coaches the coach?
I do have a coach that helps me with my coaching business. His name is Wade Houston. He's somebody that I'm working with and that had already built his coaching business, and now he works just with coaches on their programs, on their content structure, on their personal brand, etc.
It's amazing. Every guru has a guru
totally
ahead of them.
And then they have a guru.
So there'll be more time spent with you, and then as they get older and bigger, they can just say a couple of words of wisdom, and
totally, yeah,
the Padawan will be ready to absorb it. Jared, exciting year coming up, hopefully, after the elections. And it looks like you've got some hard work ahead of you. So it's a couple of years of hard graft, as we say. And I look forward to seeing your progress and looking at more videos of yours on YouTube. So lastly, let's have a call to action of where we can send folks to either go to your coaching, or if they've got over 500,000 followers and want to create a awesome brand for themselves, that they can get in touch with you.
Yeah, so coaching is Jared Jennings on every platform, and that's my website. So that's my name, that's my website, jaredjennings.com. You can find all of my coaching stuff and personal brand stuff there. If you're a public figure or you have an eComm brand that's doing at least $10,000 a month and are interested in anything of that nature, phantom-brands.com. Phantom Brands.
Awesome. So I'm going to stick those links in the description so folks can find those easily. And Jared, yeah, great chatting to you. Great energy. And I look forward to some great things from you.
Thank you, Nicholas. I appreciate it. It's been very fun.
I really do appreciate your comments. So why not go and watch this live on YouTube, or go to my website, kuhne.no. That's kuhne.no for more information.